Good afternoon, officer. How are you today?
Good, thanks.
Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
I'm Michael Vietra, police captain, Miami-Dade Police Department.
How long have you been with the Miami-Dade Police Department?
Employed since January 1996.
Were you so employed on January 31st of 2012?
Yes, I was.
Do you remember what you were doing?
During that time, I was a police lieutenant assigned to the Police Operations Bureau, and one of our areas of responsibility was the government center.
What do you mean specifically one of your areas of responsibility was the government center?
There were several different areas that we were responsible for, such as Fisher Island, Key Biscayne, the Metro Rail, Jackson Memorial Hospital, and the Stephen P. Clark Government Center, which is 111 Northwest 1st Street. It's the county government building downtown.
And during that period of time, what, if anything, was going on at the government building?
From about October of 2011 through the end of January, we had a ongoing protest that was called Occupy Miami during that time period.
Were you working there?
Yes, I was.
What were you doing?
I was the commander of the section that was responsible for the government center. So I was in charge of day-to-day operations of police responsibilities at Occupy Miami.
At some point, did you come into contact with someone who would later become known to you as Carlos Miller?
Yes, I did.
Did you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe how he's dressed?
He's dressed in a suit, sitting just behind you with a greenish color.
ID of the defendant by Article 12.
Could you please reference an article of clothing?
No, he did it.
Let the record reflect that the witness has identified him. Did everything you're about to testify to occur in Miami-Dade County?
Yes, it did.
Now, on that night of the 31st, what was your legal duty that night?
My legal duty was, I was the operation commander for the Rapid Deployment Force, and we were given instructions to vacate the west lot of the Stephen P. Clark Government Center and clear basically the protest from that area.
Who gave you those instructions?
Director James K. Loftus, who was the director, also the deputy sheriff of Miami-Dade County.
Initially, did the protesters that were there have a permit?
Yes, they did.
Did that eventually expire?
Yes, it did.
So what caused you to need to move them out that night?
The decision was made by county government.
I'm going to check. Here's move to strike the last question and answer.
Objections overruled. Continue.
I was present at a meeting with...
Wait a second. I want to see it. Objection sustained. You want to produce that later?
1 second, Judge.
Okay.
So what were you telling protesters at the Occupy Miami protest when you were trying to get them to leave?
I had basically a script that was written by the Miami-Dade Police Department's legal bureau, and it gave me instructions telling them that the protest was being considered unlawful, that they had to disperse. If they didn't disperse, they would be subject to arrest. Possibly force would be used against them if they resisted that arrest. And I gave them general directions in which they were to disperse from the site that they were at.
You actually gave them directions?
I told them that they could go on different streets, and I named the streets to them, like north or south on, I believe it was 2nd Avenue and Northwest 1st Street. We wanted them to go west, away from the government center.
Why did you want them to go in a specific direction?
We had set up a perimeter around the government center with other police cars, and we had traffic blocked off in certain areas, and we wanted to push the people away from where traffic was, so no one would get run over by a car, no one would throw a rock at a car. We wanted to, try not to intermingle the crowd that was dispersing with regular vehicular traffic that was in the downtown area.
And at that point, why had the protest become unlawful?
Objection as to whether it's lawful or unlawful, Judge.
Sustained.
At that point, why did you need the protesters to leave?
Like I explained to you earlier, there was incidents that were occurring at the Occupy Miami site that were violent in nature. There were sanitary
Judge,
conditions.
I'm going to object as to relevance in terms of how it relates to Mr. Miller.
Overruled.
Please explain more.
There was sanitary conditions, and it was deemed an unsafe environment, so in order to make it safe or return it to its normal state, we had to have the protesters that were there evacuate.
Once you pushed the protesters out, were you concerned about anything else?
Yes, once we pushed them,
Objection, Your Honor, as to what their concerns are, so they're not relevant.
Judge, you can go sidebar if you want.
No sidebar, objection sustained.
Were you concerned about protesters walking back in?
Objection, leading.
Sustained as to form. You can rephrase.
I believe that would be my first question that you sustained the objection to.
Please rephrase.
What were your concerns as RDF leader?
there were a number of concerns. But once we cleared the west lawn where the Occupy Miami protest was being held at,
Judge, I'm going to object as to what his concerns were.
Inquire about what he saw.
What did you
sustain?
What did you see after you were trying to push protesters out?
one of the things I always saw was not everybody wanted to leave. So we had to make sure that no one came back to the site where there was still debris, tents, and there was also, they were pushed to a sidewalk along the roadway, and there was still a possibility of vehicular traffic
Judge, I'm going to object
running from like
specifically to that question and answer. It's inflammatory. It's not relevant to Mr. Miller directly and any orders that he was given.
Overruled.
Are there any safety concerns with protesters walking back in for officers?
several safety concerns that I had.
Judge, objection. Again, vague, and it's not relevant.
Objection sustained. I asked him what he saw specific to this case.
What specifically did you see in this case that caused concern for safety?
I witnessed the crowd of protesters being boisterous, volatile, pushing and kicking at some of the officers' shields, and had a concern that there could be an incident of violence out there.
And how many times did you give this dispersal order throughout the course of the night?
I can't tell you exactly how many, but I would say at least more than 5 times.
I'm now going to show you some video and have you explain what's happening.
What you're seeing now, I'm reading the dispersal order, what appears to be the first time to the group that is going to be spread out directly in front of me.
Do you remember the words that you gave to the group?
Not verbatim, it was,
Can you paraphrase?
like I just told you, it was an introduction. My name is Michael Diepa. At the time, I was a police lieutenant from Miami-Dade Police Department. It went on to say that the activities there have been, I believe, deemed against the law, and that they were to disperse. Failure to disperse would result in people being arrested. There was a possibility that force could be used against them, and then again, it was given directions on to which way the people that were going to disperse should disperse.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to continue playing and have you watch.
No, I was not.
Who else were giving dispersal orders?
The gentleman that's standing directly behind me wearing tan MDP shirt as well, that's similar to mine, gave the dispersal order in Spanish. And then there's a gentleman, I believe it's to my right, who read the dispersal order in Creole as well.
Are you aware if Mr. Miller speaks Spanish?
I'm not aware.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit now.
This is the gentleman that read it in Creole.
So you said how many times was it given each time someone spoke?
All the group, at least 4 times. We gave it from north, east, south, and west vantage points on the actual west lawn. So we made sure that we hit the group from all different sides in case you were having problems hearing from one side or another.
Okay. Keep watching here, please. What's going on in the background?
In the background, there's some people that are there just watching what's going on because there's a police presence. And then there's some people, like the gentleman that is there, that's basically just exercising his right to protest. And he is directing some verbal stuff at the police and people that are there.
Do you recognize who that is?
Yes, I do.
Who is that?
That is Mr. Miller.
What's he wearing on his face?
He's wearing a black bandana.
Why would he be wearing a bandana?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
Sustained.
What's going on right there?
This is a gentleman that his name is Lieutenant Ed Kaniva. He read the dispersal order in Spanish.
Approximately how close is he to Carlos Miller?
Within, I would say, 10 to 15 feet in front of him.
And who is that right there?
I'm standing directly behind it.
And had you just given the order?
I had given it, then the gentleman you saw, that gave it Creole, and then we followed with Lieutenant Kaniva giving it in Spanish.
You'll allow me to approach for a second?
Sure. Continue on.
Just bear with me, officer. I'm not as best with technology, as you can see. What is all this debris there?
The debris that you see is, part of it is the tents that were there as part of the anti-mining protest, and part of it is debris and garbage that was left behind by the people that were getting ready to evacuate from the west lot.
And who is that right there?
That is Mr. Miller.
And what are you doing right there?
At this point, we're again trying to push everybody west towards the sidewalk and street area, and off the field over here is what we called at the time the west lot of the government center.
When you look out here, approximately how many people have cameras?
I would say the majority of the people, there's at least 20 to 30 people that are holding up either cell phones or cameras recording the incident.
What are you doing there?
At that point, this structure that's directly in front of me was in the middle of the courtyard. And like I explained to you, we read the dispersal order that I explained to you. First of all, from the east facing west, and we read it from the north facing south. At that point, I was west of it facing east, and then I went south facing north. We wanted to make sure it was very clear to everybody that was on the field, especially in that little barricaded area, that they heard the dispersal order loud and clear.
And approximately how many times had you given the dispersal order at this point?
I started on, if I was giving it from the west facing east, that would have been the third time.
Had you begun pushing back protesters at this point?
Only to an extent, because we were only, at that point, interested in going forward to that area that you see that was walled in, or had crates and people inside. And that's as far as we push people back. We wanted to create a safety zone around that because the persons that were there were going to be arrested for refusing to leave the West Lawn.
What does this depict?
That's a police vehicle that was blocking one of the streets in the area.
Why was it blocking the street?
Again, when we were directing the protesters that were there to leave, we had to push them onto the sidewalk and then out into the street. So cars going by would not run them over or create a safety concern. We wanted to block the streets to give them free access to leave freely and safely.
How long were the streets shut down for?
At least a couple hours. We set up the police cars before we actually began to do the operation, and then while the operation was going, and then until after the operation completed.
Fast forward here. Who's the gentleman in the gray shirt that officers were speaking to?
He was one of the organizers of the original.
You're going to object inferential hearsay.
Who is this person?
I asked him who he was and he's answering.
Overruled.
Continue, who is he?
He is one of the original persons that started the Occupy Miami movement. You know, to say his name right, I would be off, but I believe it was Malik Muhammad or something along those lines. In several meetings with him about the Occupy Miami.
Okay. I don't know if you can see here, but who is this standing in the background? I'll hit play for you. Right there.
Again, that's Mr. Miller.
And what's he doing?
At that point, he's shooting video of the incident.
And what are you doing?
We're standing there basically reading the dispersal order to the group of people that are within this little circle area, and we're instructing them that they have to leave or they will be subject to arrest.
Is that order given to everyone?
That's given to
meeting.
Sustained.
Who is that order given to?
the order is being given to everybody that's on the West Lawn, including the people that are sitting there in front of us who need to leave. They had a barrier around them, so we were being right up to them to make it very clear they needed to vacate.
Turn it down?
Years, you could go a few decibels lower.
It's like my dad's watching TV. Okay.
Located at 111 Northwest First Street in Miami-Dade County to immediately
What's going on right here?
Did you object speculation?
Well, he was an observer there, right? And words are being spoken. Objections overruled.
What's going on right there?
Mr. Miller is there having a conversation with the gentleman that I described as one of the original organizer of the Occupy Miami group.
And what does it look like he's doing?
Objection, speculation.
Well, the jurors can see for themselves, and I suppose any witness can talk about what he hears he's doing. You could answer that to make a record.
Please answer.
It appears to me that that the gentleman in the gray shirt is speaking to Mr. Miller and possibly giving him some instructions.
Objection, speculation.
Overruled. Is there a reason why we're looking at a single frame for a while?
Just advancing through, Judge. So make sure I go to the right times.
Okay.
What's happening here?
At this point, we've cleared the grassy area that I was calling the west lot. We're in the street at the corner of Northwest First Street. I believe that's 2nd Avenue is running north and south. And the protesters are now in the street, refusing to leave the area around the street, leaving the street area.
And who is this?
There's Mr. Miller here.
Who is that at the very end there?
Again, that's Mr. Miller at the end of the line.
What did you just say?
Everybody here is now under arrest. You are to hit the ground now. You are under arrest.
Why did you say that?
After about an hour and 10 minutes of you seeing the video, giving the orders of people not dispersing as told, it was a decision was made by the director of the office who instructed me to advise everybody that was there. They were going to be arrested, and we were going to immediately arrest everybody that you saw.
And I want to draw your attention to the left side of the video. Who is that walking away?
I mean, it's Mr. Miller.
And who are all the other people walking away?
Random people that had been out there during the protests that night, protesters.
Jack, speculation.
Protesters. Overruled.
I'm going to ask you now, if you don't mind, could you step off the stand and go over to the chalkboard here? I'll bring it over so the jurors can see. And would you draw exactly where you pushed the protesters? So let's say Government Center is up here. Okay, this is Government Center. Could you show the route that you pushed them with the RDO?
First thing we did is the road that runs along Government Center, north and south, this being north, up here.
Okay.
We pushed them into the street, which is this, I'm gonna say, Second Avenue. We pushed them into the street on Second Avenue. There was a police car that was blocking traffic going on Second Avenue. We pushed them into the street, and then we pushed them south. South, the building, the street that runs in front of the Government Center is Northwest First Street. From here, we set up a little line, and we pushed everybody west on Northwest First Street. And where you just saw everybody running from is west on Northwest First Street, and the overpass that you see is Interstate I-95.
And
That they're
from
running towards. This would be like I-95.
Is this the only way to get back to this area? Would be to follow Northwest First and North Second?
No, there would be a way to come from the south side back up to the Government Center. If you went to the road right before Interstate 95, there's another road, that's Northwest 3rd Avenue.
And could you go to the west as well if you wanted to?
You could keep going west, as you see in the video, they keep running beyond Interstate 95 west. Some people do.
So to avoid arrest at this point, the protesters had a spot they could go to.
Yes.
And could you just mark approximately where you gave your dispersal orders along the route? Just mark with a circle.
The first time I did it, this being the little west lot, I gave it here, 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 again here on the sidewalk, and then the final order where everybody was being told to be, that they were being placed under arrest was here. And it was, before me, you saw a City of Miami police officer wearing a blue uniform who also gave this first order.
Okay. 1 second, you can have a seat.